water. And I think that could be exciting either way.
Well,
And then, of course, how they play the land is going to be really important too. So we'll see how this pans out.
and it looks like we've got our answer there. Is quite a bit of water right there. Interestingly, at the edges of the map, you know, that sort of 7 to 8 o'clock position, it looks pretty skinny along those sides, doesn't it? So, and one of the things I do like is we do have teams spawning together. And that is one of my... I've said it before, I'll say it again. My favorite thing about team maps is when you spawn close to your allies. I want it to feel like a team game. I don't want it to feel like I'm spawning closer to my enemy than I am to myself. But in saying that, I still like jousting fields. I will say that much. But a lot of deep-sea fish on this map. Look at this deep-sea fish spawn for Wham. He's going to be super happy with this. Right next to his dock.
Looks like every player getting a really good deep sea, except for VortiX here. That's a little further for him, I think.
Yeah.
Looks like everybody getting a nice deep sea, though. And we see a dock from every single player, so the focus has been clearly laid out. Everyone is going to at least have fish to get from. And I wonder if it's going to be we use the fish for land, or we use the fish and fight on the water at the same time.
Yeah, I suspect there's probably going to be a pretty heavy focus here on feudal, with a lot of land fighting, just because of the civilization choices that we've got here. But I think water's probably the interesting part, right? Like there doesn't seem to be a way to have like a cohesive push on water. It's a lot more like hit and miss. I don't know if you know what I mean, but like, to me, it just feels like you're never really going to force your enemy off water. There's always going to be a way back on for them.
And I think there are some opportunities to land killing blows. I think right now, definitely, it feels very hard to push your opponent in Feudal Age, especially if they get the emplacements. But the emplacements do come at a pretty high cost. I mean, that's several hundred res. What, 225 or something like that for each one? So you're paying a price. Or is it a little more? I forget the exact value. So those emplacements, while potent for the defense, can also be an investment, right? But we'll see how this plays, because both players, looks like everyone's up to roughly 2 fishing boats now. Roos, of course, gonna feel like they're behind. That one big fishing boat makes up for itself.
Now, which civilizations do you favor here? Are you favoring the south side, preferring the north side?
I think, well, my civs, I think for me, my top 2 water civs are HRE and China.
Right.
So I think that splits it down pretty evenly. I would think that Roos is better than Abbasid, but I'm not convinced that the meta has really been solved there. I think that there's a lot of different gameplay to be discovered still for water games. I know that there's been a big tournament with naval involved, but I think that was just one map, and I think that players quickly gravitated towards something that worked, not the final thing that will always work kind of thing.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how this plays out, like long term with naval and all the balance changes and stuff, to see what really comes from it.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out and when these landmarks start going. But I would expect that our first player to drop down the landmark is probably going to be Kasva. Depends on what type of build order he goes for, but the Rus, known for their speed, their haste when it comes to water maps. And how many deer hunt have we got out today? Yeah, let's have a look right there. Okay, so Kasva's still quite a while away, but plenty of gold out there for the moment.
Yeah, looks like the bounty has done him numbers for his economy, but his food will come in when it comes in, and he'll get a good click. It looks like we're gonna have some pretty similar timings from everybody, but Wham seems a little further behind, unless he's already up.
Yeah, doesn't look like it. Alright, well, we do hear Age Up starting to come through. Double dock over for Wham, the Holy Roman Empire, over on the east side. North position for our
going
Rus.
for the Wham going for the heavy naval, the heavy sea boom. It looks like it's not going to get punished very quickly. You got Abbasids on the other side who can't really rush their aggression with their slower Age Up, and we see 2 ships from Kasva coming forward. Looks like he wants to be aggressive with these 2 guys, right?
Yeah.
Probably going to see a conversion into archer ships, I would assume.
Correct, yes. That is the most likely thing that we'll see. But just keep in mind the follow-up demo, it's going to be a long time before it reaches the base. So, Kasva, I mean, he's making a decision to go out early here, which I think is smart, but at the same time, the follow-up is going to be questionable, I think.
Yeah, and it looks like the focus is really going to be on the water here, and a proxy dock for Wham.
That explains it. But look at this. We got double dock coming down right next to each other. He's going to spot it out. Now, does he just cancel this and just go straight for the kill on this villager? I don't think he's going to have the time to. I think it's too late now.
I don't think he realized.
Yeah.
I don't think he's noticed. And he sees it now, and he's going to go for it now, but...
It's too late. The dock still gets up.
The ship?
So he can use this dock to make the demo. Because you want to have a dock close to make the demos, because it's more of like a reactionary thing, right? Like you need to be ready straight away, like, oh, okay, gotta get a demo out straight away.
Yeah. That makes sense. And we have that war junk out now for Lucifron and 2 aeroships coming in, and that dock is still up. Is that a demo coming out there, or an aeroship? Probably just a junk, if I remember the name correctly.
Yeah, at the moment, just a Hulk on the south side, but over on the other side of the map, we do see the water game unfolding already. Pretty heavy early on. Interestingly, these wood lines, they get chopped so quickly that I feel like even just putting a couple of archers in there, maybe a horseman or two. I mean, a horseman or two is probably just going to end in the death of the horseman, but getting a knight down there would be crazy good.
Junk in the war junk, easily going to repel 2 galleys here. As that aggressive Hulk, Wham just built a Hulk there.
Yeah.
That was bold.
A bold man with some bold moves. But we do see now the Backler is going to be coming out and looking to respond.
Yeah, the Bagla and the Dow here ready to go. Looks like the game's fully going to be on naval.
Yeah, big naval focus here. I didn't expect this. I thought it would be more focused on like a kind of blend between the two, but obviously for the moment.
I guess this D is just so important, right? Fishing economy is so good. And oh, we see that demo coming in. The Bagla's at lowish HP. If he gets the demo shot to connect, he won't go for it. I think he could have gone there, but hard to say.
Yeah, he probably could have, but you've just got to be so careful with the enemy micro, right? Like they fake out the shots that they take on you, then you've got to try and anticipate that and then dodge them. So it can be really tough. But this, speaking of tough, I mean, this is going to be tough for Vodka to follow. There's going to be so much action, but no. It's happening.
I've seen this before. Where have we seen this before? The Burgrave is coming in, and it's gonna start spamming out some units. And with all that fish eco, you don't need a Malian ally. And the demo gonna try and find its spot. And Wham doesn't really need this to hold for too long. He just needs it to hold for a little bit. So maybe a couple more demos, but I mean, VortiX, with all that investment in Navy, has a much larger Navy for the time being.
But remember that at the moment, right, you're playing up against China, Abbasid. Even if the Abbasid player is all of a sudden able to say, oh, okay, I can age up as well, you're going to be waiting a long time. You're going to have so many units running through your base. I think the best thing he can do is look to drop down archery ranges as soon as possible. But look at that, no production at all, no military production in the base of him.
I think this is going to be a really big surprise. I am not convinced right now that VortiX and Lucifron are ready for this to happen to them. I think Wham is about to get a lot of value right now.
Yep, and the men at arms
Kasva just holds.
Oh yeah, this is looking good for them, and he's doing a decent job up on the north side. But at the same time, even if they lose water, I mean the landmarks are what matters, right? You might have water, but if you don't have landmarks, you don't have land.
I think they're going to get knocked off of wood and not be able to produce ships anymore. Because look at the wood. I want to see the wood lines of the player spaces. While this fight unfolds, it looks like Castle's going to have to retreat off of one dock, and it looks like VortiX has just ignored the dock in his base for now and gone straight to the fishing eco, realizing now what this threat really is, and it's going to be devastating. The fight, though, looking kind of good for Lucy, right? Yeah. Well, it's a lot of aeroships.
Let's take a look over on that east side, as we've got plenty of men-at-arms now coming into the base for VortiX. He is going to have some trouble, and we can see he's evacuating from this wood line. Let's take a look over at the docks for Wham, though. Get a bit of an idea about what Wham is sacrificing to make all of this work. Up towards the north, Kasva holding on, but we can see that fishing boat's going to have to evacuate from this position. Lucifron also receiving a little bit of wood here. VortiX trying to help a brother out, quite literally.
He's got so many fishing boats though, and compared to the previous game, we saw the same thing happen to the Abbasid player, right? It was Kasva who was playing Abbasid's last game, and the big difference here is that VortiX's food economy is not being idled. So he can actually afford some camel archers if he gets just a little bit of wood.
Yeah, we can see he's actually stacking up a lot of gold right now that he doesn't really need. But the camel archer numbers still yet to really increase. He's on 3 at the moment. Demo ship coming out as well. So it looks like Wham might even be holding over there despite giving away at least what appeared to be a primary stake in the water.
Yeah, Wham and Kasva are going to hold the water here, and that means that their attack on the land is just going to be all the more important. Successful moving forward. There's just nothing for Wham to do on the land for the time, or sorry, nothing for VortiX to do on the land for the time being. Just try and survive. We see the Pierce Armor upgrades coming in. Just going to try and give those Man-at-Arms a bit more durability.
Yeah, Man-at-Arms doing a great job just hitting all angles right now. But how do you deal with these camel archers, right? Because these camel archers are eventually going to be able to overwhelm you, and Lucifron now aging up. That's going to be his Chinese teammate. So that means maybe crossbows supervised on the way.
Maybe, but you say that the camel archers can't be trained. There's no wood income for VortiX. He's got what he's got. Maybe if he goes Castle Age and a big naval engagement here. Under the Chinese docks this time, but it looks like Castle just has way more material on the board.
Yeah. That's a lot of archer ships. Let's just put it that way. But the men-at-arm flurry continues coming through. A distinct lack of crossbows still in the base of VortiX at the moment, and overwhelming the amount of boats that are out here. We can see Lucifron once again sending out wood to his brother, helping out VortiX a little bit. He might have to concede water though, as the fishing boats fall back.
Yeah, this is about to get really sad for them on the side of VortiX and Lucifron if they can't find a way to hold on the land and the water, right? Like, I think this is just going to become very, very difficult. The Navy's going to sweep around the south, taking out all the fishing boats, and meanwhile, Wham still just having a field day under the town center here.
But take a look at this. We got the crossbows out, and that's what matters. The crossbows out. That's going to enable the defense to hold on. Lucifron just needs to make sure he doesn't. And it's going to be a good game. VortiX taps out. Lucifron taps out, and it's going to be 3 beavers and a turkey heading through to the next round.
I can't believe that Los Pollos Hermanos are going to have to play a decider match. I'm not sure when that series is set for, but that's going to be a fun one to watch. That's going to be a game to look out for. We had 4 players now move on to the next round, and 2 teams now move on to the next round, and 2 teams going to play another day for the qualifier, right? We're done for today. I believe that's the case.
I think we're done for today. I can double check.
What a game.
Let me.
What a game, though.
8 hours and 30 minutes. Not too bad. All 12 games today that we could have possibly seen. We did see. So congratulations go over to 3 beavers and a turkey. They're going to be very happy with that one. Let's talk a little bit about that last game, though, just to try and dissect, try and understand exactly where it all went wrong.
Yeah, sure.
The moment the Burgrave came up, that's when you kind of hit the emergency panic button, right? And you need to formulate a response immediately. We saw that VortiX was putting down archery ranges, and a bit of a push was coming out by Lucifron on water at the same time. Perhaps, eventually crossbows did come out, but Lucifron and VortiX threw in the towel. Do you think they could have held on a little bit longer, or was the game 100% over?
The game was over. I think in the same vein that that 3 beavers and a turkey seemed woefully unprepared for Gold Swamp, Los Pollos did not seem prepared at all for what they needed to do in this game, right? Like, not respecting what HRE can do on a hybrid map when they have unfettered access to fish. Like, I think maybe they just didn't realize the threat. And they picked 2 very slow civs, right?
Yeah.
Like, China needs time. China's rush isn't super aggressive.
Yeah.
It has a good timing, but it takes time to get there. Obviously, the word timing. Abbasid as well, like, on these maps, like, what are you really going to do with Abbasid? I mean, I would have loved to see one of them go horseman, be aggressive. Like, why are they leaving it till Castle Age to make army? I think you could attack those woodlines earlier when you have that floated food from the fish. I think it could be really strong, but really, really tough. It really looked like, honestly, these last 2 games just looked like nobody could deal with the Burgrave,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's just it, right? Like the Burgrave, how do you deal with it? And I think on this map especially, if we see more Coastal, if Coastal ever makes its way to 1v1 and ranked, I think HRE are just going to be the #1 civ there. That is, it's crazy to think of the power that they've got because the Burgrave is such an important landmark. The moment that Burgrave is completed, you've got five barracks that you've just made, and you're ready to pump out units. And your enemy...
Barracks.
Your
Yeah,
enemy,
like
they're kind of like, they're sitting there, they're twiddling their thumbs, you know, they've got one hand on the mouse, one hand doing something else, and then you age up and they're like, oh shit, I'm not pushing you on water, I don't have anything on land, and you just hit castle age with a Burgrave. So, you know, it's ludicrous. How we've kind of seen the Burgrave become more and more relevant for the Holy Roman Empire. And I think on that map in particular, that is one of the best maps you can get for it because, you know, if you were to think about Boulder Bay as an example, you want to try and fight Boulder Bay as long as possible on water because you don't want to lose it, whereas here you didn't really care about losing it because you've got the Burgrave. Whereas on Boulder Bay, it's kind of like, well, if you go Burgrave, the water's still really, really potent. We can crush you off it. And even if we don't, you know, maybe we lose Vils in the short term, we'll make it up in the long term on water. It's just not the case here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also someone in chat said this too, but like I believe you get the Man-at-Arm, like the upgrade from the early Man-at-Arm to the Castle Age version of the Man-at-Arm. That tech takes 7 seconds.
Yep. Yeah.
So you just pump out a bunch and then whoop, they're all upgraded. And it's like it just makes it really quick, really aggressive, and because Man-at-Arms are so good at punishing a civ that's an age down, right? Because you can't make crossbows in feudal. So with that, you just run. You have a rampant time until players have counters up, right? And I think you're onto something. You mentioned a lot today that players just need to FC into crossbows and have a better time. It doesn't even need to be an FC. I feel like in a lot of these games you could semi FC.
Yep.
I think semi FC into crossbows, have a couple spearmen out like to frontline for the crossbows, and they do 8 damage in feudal age, so like they actually do kind of okay until you get the melee armor upgrades, which is another big investment for those. So I think there are ways to deal with the Burgrave, but in this series, sure, we saw it. It felt like it was like the linchpin to 2 victories. It was the most important element for 2 game strategies, right? And it won decisively in both. So I think it's definitely something that we're going to see players maybe need to think about a bit more. Maybe on Conti, if you have a bit of extra wood, maybe you need to wall a little earlier, right? Maybe you need some arrow slits. I don't know what the solution really would be. Maybe you need crossbows, like you're saying. I think that's probably your best bet.
Yep.
Maybe you need to draft knight civs so that you can have your own knights. Maybe you need to make sure you don't get caught by HRE by surprise. But yeah, really interesting stuff. And ooh,
here we go.
Here's our
little bit of
results of today, right?
Yeah. So we do see the chimps do go to O. We do see 3D Clan eliminated as they went 0-2, and FYF as well as Fat Penguin finishing 1-1 in the group stages each. Over on Group B though, it's going to be 3 Beavers and a Turkey making their way through to the next round, and Villager OP were eliminated. The Kimchi Enjoyers and Los Pollos Hermanos are going to be battling it out next.